Want to learn an hour of amazing facts? Subscribe now. We're starting soon. Zip stitch is one of those inventions that seems simple until you see it in action. Instead of stitching the skin, it uses an adhesive system with adjustable strips that quickly bring the edges of the wound together. The interesting thing is that it closes more cleanly and less invasively, and the tension can be adjusted as if you were turning a machine. Can you imagine how useful it is in emergencies or when you want to minimize wound manipulation? The bearded vulture doesn't improvise. It has an almost engineering technique. It soars up with large bones and drops them from a height to break them and access the marrow, which is the most nutritious part. What's incredible isn't just the strength, it's the precision and the practice, as if it knows exactly how much it needs to break the bone. In the Canary Islands, there's the shepherd's leap, and it's not just a tourist show. It's a real tradition for moving across impossible terrain. With a long pole, they support themselves, cushion their falls, propel themselves forward, and cross cliffs with pinpoint balance. Think of it this way. It's an ancient form of parkour with a tool that transforms the landscape into invisible steps. Fola David Tolaram created something that sounds unreal. The largest single drawing with a clear message: unity in diversity. The power lies in the contrast. A gigantic work made stroke by stroke, as if each line were a person and the whole were an entire community. Janil Park makes furniture that looks like cartoons, but it exists. With wire, he assembles tables, chairs, and objects that deceive the eye. They look like 2D sketches floating in the air, even though they are entirely three-dimensional. It's the kind of design that forces you to look twice, because your brain says, that can't be real. Storeljen in Norway is a steel moose about 33 feet tall with a mirror finish. Imposing, shiny, and almost surreal. The best part is that it's not just art. It also functions as a giant sign to alert drivers to slow down and be alert in areas where real moose cross the road. Patterned rollers are the legal loophole for feeling like an artist without being a muralist. You load the design, roll it once, and perfect geometric or decorative patterns appear. The beauty lies in the immediate effect. An ordinary wall becomes interior design without the need for endless stencils or a surgeon's steady hand. Elephant coffee sounds strange because it is. It's made with beans that have passed through the animal's digestive system, and the process changes the bean's profile. It's sold as a milder and more exclusive, and yes, quite expensive, infusion. The big question: would you try it out of curiosity, or does it seem too much? Big Boy is a beautiful case of rescue plus education, an elephant who ends up becoming a public figure to talk about conservation. It's not fame for fame's sake, it's using charisma to get people interested in habitats, threats, and real protection. Sometimes an animal becomes the perfect bridge between emotion and environmental awareness. The Weifang Ferris wheel seems like magic because it doesn't have a central axis like typical Ferris wheels. The cabins are arranged around a frame-like structure, offering 360 degrees views and a strange sensation, as if you were hanging from an engineering marvel. It's one of those things that makes you wonder, how does that thing stay up? A medium-sized cloud can weigh a ton or more, even though it floats. The key is that it's not a block. It's millions of microscopic droplets suspended in air currents. This fact shatters your intuition. Heavy doesn't always mean it falls when the environment supports and distributes it. The African hydnora is a plant that seems otherworldly. It lives underground, blooms in secret, and smells rotten to attract pollinating beetles. It's nature unfiltered. It doesn't seduce with perfume, it seduces with strategy. Disturbing? Yes. Effective? Also yes. Popeye, according to several popular stories, was inspired by a real sailor, Frank Rocky Fiegel. The beauty lies in how a flesh and blood character becomes a myth. strength, charisma, and that tough guy but noble vibe that ends up immortalized in a cartoon. Popcorn pops due to pure science. The kernel has internal moisture. When heated, the steam increases the pressure until the hull bursts. At that moment, the starch expands and turns inside out, forming that edible white sponge. It's literally a controlled mini-explosion in your pan. Raynaud's syndrome is a very visual example of circulation. In episodes due to cold or stress, certain areas can turn white, then blue, and then red when blood flow returns. It's like a traffic light on the skin that shows how the body prioritizes and restricts blood flow to certain vessels at different times. The self-propelled modular transporter is like the Meccano set of heavy industry. Modular vehicles that combine to transport absurdly heavy loads with remote control or a cabin. What's impressive is the precision, moving giants without breaking anything around them, almost like surgery, but with tons. Esperance Luminesca is known for records related to tattoos and body modifications. Beyond the number, what's striking is the idea. The body as an archive, identity, and visible narrative. It's not just aesthetics, it's often a biography on the skin. In curling, sweeping the ice isn't cleaning, it's directing. By brushing, you change friction and the microlayer of water, and that alters the speed and trajectory of the stone. Simply put, you're not pushing the stone, you're drawing the path it will follow. Chris Roger works with blown glass with a brutal balance between delicacy and fire. What's hypnotic is watching something fragile emerge from such an extreme process. Heat, air, rotation, perfect timing. A second changes everything. The red banana is often described as sweeter and with a distinct flavor than the typical yellow one. It's one of those reminders that one fruit can be a universe of varieties. Same name, completely different experience. In Huangluo, China, many women maintain a tradition famous for their extremely long hair. It's not just a record, it's culture, identity, a passed-down custom. For them, hair is family history, aesthetics, and ritual all at once. Branding cattle with liquid nitrogen is a modern method that uses extreme cold to leave a visible mark, sometimes causing the hair to grow white in that area. It's marketed as a faster and less stressful alternative in certain conditions. Masi Kurin is known for having extremely long legs. One exceeds 53 inches. This fact is surprising because it changes the scale of the everyday. What for one person is a step, for another is half a journey. SpaceX's Starship underwent tests where it achieved impressive maneuvers, and on some occasions, there was a controlled landing or descent followed by failure or explosion due to technical problems, such as leaks. It's a classic case of almost. When you're pushing technology to its limits, success and disaster can be separated by mere seconds. Regarding Kylie Jenner, she's been mentioned extensively in the media for her fortune and for being one of the youngest billionaires associated with the world of personal branding. Beyond the exact figure, what's interesting is the phenomenon, turning attention into an industry. Audrey Hepburn's dress from Breakfast at Tiffany's became a historical artifact. It was auctioned for an enormous sum, usually cited as being over $9,000,000. It's proof that an object can be valued for what it represents: cinema, an era, a cultural icon. Leptopoma perlucidum is a very rare snail due to its unusual combination of features on land, gills, and an operculum. It lives in lowland areas of Indonesia and the Philippines, and its existence reminds us that nature doesn't respect our categories. It mixes traits, and that's it. The Gouldian finch looks painted. Vibrant colors, blues, greens, oranges, that seem edited but are real. It's one of those birds that, when you see it, you understand why people are obsessed with natural beauty. Yes, there is a green sand beach, Papacolia, in Hawaii. What's fascinating is that it's not dyed sand. It's geology, minerals, and natural processes that end up creating a color that seems like a fantasy. In 1954, Roger Bannister ran the mile in under 4 minutes, and that changed the history of the sport. The craziest thing is the psychological effect. For years, it seemed impossible until someone does it, and suddenly the mental barrier is shattered for everyone else. In the Maldives, sometimes the sea shines as if it has stars. It's bioluminescence from plankton. Watching each wave light up is an almost surreal experience, as if the water responds to your every step with light. In China, the Dragon Boat Festival is one of those celebrations where history becomes spectacle. Races of long boats decorated like dragons, drums marking the rhythm, and the air filled with team cheers. And then comes the delicious part, zongzi, little bundles of glutinous rice wrapped in dough, sometimes sweet and sometimes savory. All of this is done in honor of the poet Kuo Yuan. Is it a festival, a tribute, a tradition, or all three at once? Paper pop-ups seem like cheap magic. Until you try them, you open a page and suddenly a 3D structure appears, born from the book with folds, cuts, and tabs. The amazing thing is that it's not just decoration, it's miniature engineering, where every fold has a function. How can something so fragile hold such precise shapes? Anton is the kind of creator who picks up a skateboard and asks himself, what if I make it out of glass? What if I use recycled wood? What if I turn it into a mobile experiment? His inventions go viral because they blend risk, creativity, and curiosity. And they also leave you wondering how much of what seemed impossible was just a matter of habit. A gas-powered robot that fills your tank without you having to get out of your car sounds like science fiction, but it already exists. It opens the cap, attaches the hose, and fills it for you. The craziest thing isn't just the convenience, but the concept. Stations where the human hand is replaced by an automated system, as if the future has arrived in the most everyday way. During World War II, conversions took place that seem dystopian today. Metals for domestic and civilian use ended up as weapons, and vice versa. Seeing helmets converted into cooking pots, or parts reused as needed, shows how in war the priority is survival and production, even if the symbolism is distorted. A washing machine converted into an aquarium? Yes, the internal mechanism is removed, it's sealed, the glass is fitted, and suddenly you have a fish tank shaped like a household appliance. The fun part is the contrast. Something designed to rotate and clean ends up being a peaceful home for fish, like a humorous piece of recycling. Automatic car sunshades are like a giant personal umbrella. They unfold quickly to protect from the sun and heat, as if your vehicle were putting on a hat by itself. The idea is practical. Less internal temperature, less suffering when getting back in the car, and a rather striking look. Afshin Esmail Ghaderzadeh is 25.69 inches tall and was recognized as the shortest living man in the world with mobility. The fact is impressive, but what's most striking is thinking about daily life. Everything, doors, steps, chairs, is made for a different scale. How does the world change when the world wasn't designed for your size? The mechanical golden horse is a sculpture that simulates a real gallop. It doesn't just look like it's moving, it is. And therein lies the charm. When art incorporates kinetics, it becomes hypnotic because your eye knows it's metal, but your brain processes it as life. In Japan, there are bars where you pay to be slapped by a stranger. It sounds absurd, but that's precisely where the strangeness lies. Some interpret it as catharsis, performance art, or an unscripted experience. The inevitable question, tradition, fashion, or simple curiosity taken to the extreme. Some stores lock the wheels of shopping carts if they cross certain boundaries. It's a simple solution to a classic problem: shopping carts lost in the neighborhood or thefts. What's interesting is how technology is applied to modify behavior. No one is chasing you. The cart decides for you and stops. Penterophobia is the irrational fear of mothers-in-law. It may sound like a joke, but in some people, it manifests as real anxiety. Family gatherings, dinners, comments, and the body reacts as if there were danger. How much of that fear is cultural? How much personal? And how much an emotional trigger? The pill cam looks like an ordinary capsule, but it's a camera. You swallow it, and it takes pictures of your digestive tract as it goes down. It's a less invasive alternative for looking inside without tubes. And the idea is brilliant in its simplicity, turning your own body into the exploration route. The tumble-rot pigeons of Budapest attract attention with their giant, cartoonish eyes. A curious phenomenon emerges here. Sometimes nature or selective breeding creates such exaggerated features that they clash with what we expect from a common animal, making them impossible to ignore. In Japan, there are staircases that transform into platforms for transporting people in wheelchairs. It's a design conceived for real accessibility. The staircase ceases to be a barrier and becomes a mechanical aid. It makes no noise, but it changes lives. The largest ball of human hair weighs 225.14 pounds. Yes, more than 100 pounds of hair collected through donations over time. The strangest thing isn't the record, but the mental effect. Something everyday and disposable transformed into a grotesque and fascinating monument. David Grunges transforms scrap metal into sculptures. Old iron, loose pieces, industrial remnants, and suddenly a figure with presence emerges. What's captivating is the message. What seemed like trash becomes art, and recycling ceases to be a concept and becomes a visual impact. The Google Maps backpack is a brilliant solution. It captures 360 degrees images in places where cars can't go, like paths, stairs, alleyways, or mountains. It essentially turns a person into a street view vehicle and reminds you how much logistics go into something we use in seconds. Irwin sculptures with fat cars seem like a joke, but they're often social commentary disguised as caricature. The distortion exaggerates what already exists: consumption, excess, comfort, identity attached to objects. You laugh at first, and then the question remains. Little Island in New York looks like a fairy tale park floating on the Hudson. Tulip-shaped columns, undulating paths, and greenery everywhere. The appeal lies in the combination: nature, architecture, and urban stroll, as if the city were giving itself permission to play. Swimming in a pool 492 feet high with a glass floor? It exists. The idea triggers vertigo even just reading the description. More than a pool, it's an experience designed to make your body say no and your curiosity say yes. In Japan, every spring, more than 5 million blue Nemophila flowers can cover Hitachi Park like a sea of azure. It's one of those landscapes that looks like it's been edited. The horizon bursts into color and the sky almost competes with the ground. Squid Game 2 had an explosive launch. It reportedly reached 68 million views in just 4 days, breaking Netflix premiere records. Beyond the numbers, what's interesting is how a series becomes a global event. Memes, conversation, and that social pressure of, you have to see it. Butterflies don't have lungs. They breathe through tracheae, a network of tiny tubes that carries oxygen directly to the tissues. It's incredible because it forces us to reimagine life. Without inhaling or exhaling like us, they still fly, migrate, and survive with a completely different system. There's a photo of a sloth and its baby sleeping in such a strange position that it looks like they're hanging in midair. The funny thing is that, for them, that's absolute comfort, a body adapted to living suspended as if gravity were optional. Did you imagine that manufacturing a pair of Beats headphones could cost very little compared to their retail price? Estimates circulate that speak of extremely low figures, and that's where the real issue arises. You're not just paying for materials, you're paying for the brand, marketing, distribution, and profit margin. A macro photo of a snowflake is a beautiful reminder. each one can have a unique geometry, like a microscopic carved jewel. What's hypnotic is that the symmetry seems designed, but it's actually physics and crystallization playing with temperature and humidity. And yes, there are dogs trained as lifeguards, capable of jumping into the water even from helicopters during rescue training. What's impressive isn't just the training, but the trust. Animal and human functioning as a true team with discipline and purpose. On the Hawaiian island of Oahu, there's an extinct volcanic cone called Diamond Point, and the craziest thing is that inside and around the crater, you can still see remnants of fortifications and military structures related to coastal defense. You walk through a picture postcard landscape, and suddenly you're surrounded by tunnels, bunkers, and control stations. MotoGP bikes can lean at seemingly impossible angles without crashing. More than 60 degrees in a corner isn't uncommon, and even greater lean angles have been documented in extreme conditions. Think of it this way. The limit isn't just the rider, it's also the tire, the temperature, and physics shouting at each other. Airplane toilet waste isn't simply thrown away as you might imagine. It's extracted using a suction and vacuum system, with hoses connected to special trucks on the ground as the plane lands. It's a quick, sealed, and highly choreographed procedure because nobody wants it to go wrong. There's a robot called Prayer that autonomously writes and prays, created as an art piece to make you think about spirituality in times of automation. The uncomfortable question is a great one. If a machine recites a perfect prayer, is it still a prayer? The spiny flower mantis camouflages itself so brilliantly among flowers that it literally looks like a petal with legs, and this trick makes it invisible to both prey and predators. Moreover, when disturbed, it can act by opening its wings and displaying patterns to scare off predators. And yes, there's a photo of a slug escaping from the mouth of a carnivorous plant, like a slow-motion action scene from the plant world. The best part is that it makes you think, even in nature's menu, sometimes there are exceptions. Your eyebrows are much thicker than they appear. It's common to hear about hundreds of hairs per eyebrow. Many sources mention around 250 on average, although it can vary. In other words, they're not just decorations, they're a system for deflecting sweat, dust, and light. Can you believe that Shakira was rejected from her school choir because her vibrato sounded like a goat? It sounds like a joke until you remember how often talent arrives in a strange state before it's polished. Did you know that sea turtles cry? It's not sadness. They secrete excess salt through glands near their eyes, and that's why they appear to tear up when they're on land. It's their way of living in the ocean without the salt destroying them from the inside. In Svalbard, Norway, summer brings midnight sun when the sun doesn't set for months, and winter becomes its opposite, periods without sunrise. You live amidst auroras, twilight, and seasons that seem otherworldly. Eyelashes don't last forever. Each one has its own cycle, and it's common for them to live around 100 to 150 days before falling out and being replaced. That's why you're always losing some without ever going bald. Does it sound absurd that someone sold Splash Mountain water for thousands? It happened. There were highly commented posts about the game's water being sold as both a collectible and a meme. The unsettling thing is that there's always someone willing to pay for a piece of history, even if it's liquid. Carom is like billiards crossed with shuffleboard. A wooden board, pucks, a striker, and pure finger aim. The addictive thing is that it seems simple until you try to get a piece in precisely and realize it's chess of reflexes. The Komodo dragon is the largest lizard on the planet and can weigh about 154 pounds in the wild and even more in exceptional cases. It's not just a big bug, it's an apex predator with a modern-day dinosaur presence. In Asia, some dishes are cooked by submerging them in hot sand or even hot salt. The material is heated in a giant wok, and the food is buried in it to cook evenly. It's street food with thermal science in disguise. The Great Sphinx of Giza didn't lose its nose to a cannonball from Napoleon, even though that story is very popular. There are already records and earlier drawings that show it without a nose. The reality is sadder. Human damage, centuries of mistreatment, and accumulated mystery. Dragonflies are hunting machines. Studies mention that they can have extremely high success rates, close to 95%. Incredible eyes, incredibly precise aerial maneuvers, and aim that seems like autopilot. Did you know that owls can fly almost silently? It's not magic. Their feathers have special edges and textures that break the airflow and dampen the sound. That's why, when they attack, the victim hardly even notices. The sun is so gigantic that by volume, about 1.3 million Earths could fit inside it. It's such an absurd number that it leaves you with only one reaction. We are a crumb. Tanya Herbert holds the record for the largest female feet ever recorded. Her right foot measures 13.03 inches. What's impressive isn't just the statistic, but the logistical world behind it. Shoes, sizes, special orders, everything. The brittle star looks like an alien creature. It's related to starfish, but with long, flexible arms that move like snakes. And because its arms are so independent, watching it move is a little creepy, in a good way. A cockroach can withstand enormous pressure relative to its size. Forces of hundreds of times its body weight have been measured, reaching nearly 900 times in certain experimental contexts. That's why squashing one isn't always as easy as you might think. At 18, it's often said that Mike Tyson already had a neck with a circumference of around 19.7 inches. Something key for absorbing blows without losing stability. And although it sounds like a legendary fact, it makes biomechanical sense. A strong neck means a more stable head. Half-black tigers, also called pseudo-melanistic tigers, are not simply fewer than 10 in the world. The condition is rare globally, yes, but in the Similipal Reserve in India, it is surprisingly common due to a shared mutation in a small population. It's the kind of rarity that suddenly speaks to you about genetics and conservation. Consider this. In 1973, an anti-tank grenade was designed in the exact shape of an American football, so that the throw would be natural, with spin and all, as if you were throwing a long pass. The idea was to turn a sporting gesture into a tactical advantage, even though it sounds like science fiction. There are spiders that look like they're made of enamel and LED lights. The Brazilian jewel tarantula, Typhoclena celadonia, has metallic reflections and intense colors that look like paint, but they are real. And the craziest thing is that, despite being striking, it is small and difficult to see in its habitat if you don't know exactly where to look. Kangaroos don't just hop, they also swim better than you might imagine. In the water, they move with surprising efficiency, and their tail helps them stabilize and steer their bodies as they move forward, like a natural rudder. In South Korea, some urban trees receive treatment like patients. There have been cases where bags of saline solution, like IV fluids, are placed on them to hydrate and help trees stressed by heat, pests, or pollution recover. It's literally medicine. But for tree trunks, if the landscapes of Avatar seemed impossible to you, it makes sense. Zhangjiajie in China became famous because its rock formations inspired those floating mountains, and they even renamed a peak to capitalize on the phenomenon. Nature creating concept art before Hollywood. Water jet cutting machines are one of those things that seem like a trick. Water at extremely high pressure, sometimes with abrasive, cutting metal, glass, or wood with surgical precision. It's as if the water becomes an invisible saw. Movie fact: Darth Vader didn't have his final voice on set. The actor who physically portrayed him, David Prowse, spoke the lines during filming, but the iconic voice we know was recorded later by James Earl Jones. Have you seen those cups that fill from the bottom? There are systems where the cup rests on a base that opens a valve at the bottom and fills it in seconds, perfect for stadiums and massive events. Fast, clean, almost magical. The Gore is a real giant, one of the largest wild bovines in the world, known for being strong, territorial, and not easily intimidated. It's not just a big cow. It's a biological tank with a bad temper if you invade its space. And yes, that kind of space pareidolia exists. Photos of the lunar surface where a formation looks like a reclining bear. The funny thing is that your brain constructs it in a second, as if it needed to find life even in a rock. There are public restrooms with glass walls in China. Yes, transparent or semi-transparent. The idea attracts attention, makes you a little uncomfortable, and precisely for that reason, discourages certain behaviors, although not everyone dares to use them with complete peace of mind. A trend for natural disasters? It sounds strange, but the concept works. Clothing designed to withstand fire, water, impacts, wind, and then sold as a fashion show. The question is inevitable. Is it a useful design or a reflection of our modern anxieties? The paramedic with a jetpack isn't just a rumor. Jet suits have been tested for mountain rescue, capable of reducing arrival times from hours to minutes in impossible terrain, literally flying to provide first aid. And if you want a dose of surrealism, a cat parade made with AI. It's the kind of video that makes you wonder whether to laugh, be scared, or share it immediately. In New York, there's a penthouse that was promoted as the tallest in the world by height above ground. The one in Central Park Tower, Nordstrom Tower, at the top of the skyscraper, was listed for around $250 million and at an approximate height of 1,416 feet. The platypus and the echidna are so unusual that they don't even have a conventional stomach. Monotremes have lost several functions typical of an acidic stomach, and their digestive system is different from that of most modern mammals. Ants in many species don't sting as one might think. They first bite to gain a foothold and then apply irritants, like formic acid, to finish the attack. 2 steps: grip and chemistry. Pikachu has historical consistency. Its voice has been provided by the same actress Ikue Otani since 1997. That is, entire generations have heard the same original, Pika Pika. The white-tailed deer is an athlete. It can clear fences and obstacles with enormous leaps. When you see it in motion, you understand why it's so difficult to keep up with it in the bush. Ocean 1K is a robotic diver designed to explore the depths with 3D vision and precise manipulation, as if it had hands underwater. The idea is to go to places where a human cannot reach, but with human sensitivity. In Coober Pedy, Australia, many people live underground, cave houses, dugouts that serve as escapes from the extreme desert heat. It's climate survival turned into a lifestyle. Hurling is like nothing and everything at the same time. A lightning-fast Irish sport with a stick hurley and a ball, sliotar, that mixes collisions, technique, and brutal speed. Seeing it for the first time makes you think, is this legal? The Kokonoi-Yume Bridge in Japan became famous for being one of the longest pedestrian suspension bridges in the country, spanning some 1,280 feet over a dizzying landscape. It's not just crossing it, it's taking your breath away. Toucans use their beaks as air conditioners. Studies have shown that the beak functions as a controllable thermal radiator, helping to release heat when needed. An integrated biological fan. The Vasconcelos Library in Mexico City looks like a futuristic forest. Suspended bookshelves, steel, glass, and that feeling that the books are floating on a giant skeleton. It's a library, but also a visual experience. The Pop. Up next was a modular taxi concept, part ground, part air, as if a car could attach to a giant drone. More than a finished product, it was an idea to imagine how a city would move if traffic could take off. Borobudur in Java, Indonesia, is a historical marvel. It's recognized as the world's largest Buddhist temple, a carved stone mountain that resembles a 3D spiritual map. Regarding the human body, we often say about 9.8 gallons of water. But the important thing is the idea. Most of the body is water, approximately 60% in adults, and the exact number changes depending on weight, age, and composition. It's still impressive to think of it in gallons. Millie Bobby Brown was born in Marbella, Spain, and then moved as a child. It's one of those facts that surprises you because your brain automatically places her somewhere else. Since 2017, Seattle has held a T-Rex race with those inflatable costumes, people running around like clumsy dinosaurs and still competing seriously. It's ridiculous and brilliant at the same time. And the last one is more of a social trick than hard science. Many say that stall 1-inch the bathroom is usually cleaner because people avoid it since it's too visible or close to the door. A universal rule? No. A recurring human pattern? Quite possible. The giant centipede is a type of centipede, a myriapod, that lives in the lowlands of Venezuela, Colombia, and also in the southern Caribbean, like Trinidad. What's most impressive isn't just its size, it's that feeling of a prehistoric animal moving with complete confidence, as if the ground belonged to it. Can you imagine seeing it cross a dry leaf at night and barely hearing that tiny rustle? In Hong Kong, there was a place that seemed almost unreal, Kowloon Walled City. It was like a city within a city, stacked vertically, with buildings so close together that light filtered in only in slivers. Sometimes I think it was more of an organism than a neighborhood. Corridors, staircases, hidden corners, and everything functioning in its own way. How could you not get lost there when every turn led you to another world on top of the previous one? In Norway, there's Hedel Church, considered the largest wooden church of its kind, built in the early 8th century. I love it because it doesn't feel like an ordinary building. It resembles an old ship converted into a temple, with that almost imaginary smell of old wood and centuries preserved within. How did they manage to make something like that survive for so long in such a harsh climate? And something that always surprises, the human brain is approximately 60% fat. Sounds strange, doesn't it? Because we associate it with pure intelligence, and yet it's largely made of a material that no one would normally celebrate. But therein lies the trick, that fat performs essential functions, and without it, we literally don't think the same way. Yazd in Iran is famous for its wind towers, the badgirs. Basically, they're a kind of ancient air conditioner, structures designed to trap air and direct it downwards, cooling buildings without electricity. When I discovered how they work, I got that feeling of, this is technology, but centuries ahead of its time. In India, during weddings, many brides decorate their hands and feet with henna designs, mehendi. It's not just decoration, it's often laden with symbolism, patience, and ritual. It's mesmerizing to watch the design being created line by line. Do you ever look at those patterns and find it hard to believe it's just ink? Villa Oleandra on Lake Como, Italy, is known for being George Clooney's property and for its picture-perfect aesthetic. Immaculate gardens, tranquil water, and an environment that seems designed for unwinding. I always wonder what it feels like to wake up to that view. Does it bring you peace or make you feel like you're living in a postcard? Another classic misconception: shooting stars aren't stars. They're bits of rock or space dust that enter the atmosphere at high speed and burn up, leaving that bright trail. In other words, what you see is a momentary fire in the air. Isn't it a little crazy to think you're making a wish in front of a burning rock? Apples float because they have air inside, tiny cavities that make them less dense than water. It's simple and magical at the same time. It seems like a trick, but it's pure physics hidden in an everyday fruit. The Irish wolfhound is one of the largest dogs in the world. It can reach up to about 35 inches at the wither's end. Moreover, has that gentle giant presence. Sometimes you see one and think it should be intimidating, but often its expression is more that of a calm philosopher than a fierce guardian. The exoplanet WASP-12b is so extreme that gravity and tidal forces deform it, which is why it is often described as egg-shaped. When I first read about it, I was left thinking, if a planet can stretch like Play-Doh, then space is much less rigid than we imagine. The helical bridge in Choluteca, Honduras, is one of those designs that makes you do a double take. Its spiral shape is not arbitrary. It is designed to better withstand phenomena like hurricanes and earthquakes. Who would have thought that a well-designed curve could be stronger than a straight line? The mountain oropendola is a fascinating bird from Central America that builds nests like hanging bags, suspended from branches. It's not just pretty, it's natural engineering. How do they learn to weave like that without it falling apart in the wind? A hummingbird's heart can beat up to 1,260 times per minute. It's so fast it seems like a tiny living engine. Every time I think about it, I'm amazed that such a small animal has such a high-performance system and yet looks so delicate. The BMW logo is commonly associated with Bavaria. Those colors evoke the Bavarian flag and the identity of the place where the brand was born. It's curious how a circle with colors can become a recognizable sign in any country, like a visual language. Borja and Alvaro Garcia, two brothers who are European champions in futsal, are famous for their incredible coordination. They seem to play with one mind. I love those pairings because they make you wonder, is it pure practice, or is there a connection that isn't fully trained? In Portugal, there's only one national park, Peneda Gerais. That alone makes it special, but it's also a place of green landscapes, villages, waterfalls, and truly wild nature. Doesn't it make you want to get lost there for a couple of days without a watch? Sharks don't have bones. Their skeleton is made of cartilage. That makes them lighter and more flexible in the water, as if nature had chosen less weight, more efficiency. Conor McGregor, in addition to being a fighter, ventured into the world of whiskey with his brand Proper No 12. It's one of those rare intersections between sports and business that ultimately become pop culture, fights, fame, and suddenly a bottle. Xie Qi Yuping, a Chinese woman, held the Guinness World Record for the longest hair, over about 18.4 feet in 2004. What's incredible isn't just the length, but the daily discipline. Can you imagine what it takes to maintain it without it becoming impossible? Harper's Bazaar is one of the oldest magazines, founded in 1867 in the United States. The fact that it still exists when the world has changed so many times shows you how powerful a cultural brand can be. Muay Thai from Thailand is known as the art of 8 limbs because it uses fists, elbows, knees, and legs. It's a style that feels very real. It doesn't aim to look good, it aims to be effective. Have you ever watched a serious workout? It takes your breath away just watching it. The Jerusalem artichoke, tupinambo, is a tuber similar to a potato, but with a sweeter flavor and a crunchy texture. I like it because many people don't know it, and yet it's there, waiting for someone to discover it on a plate. In Norway, Trollstigen, the Troll Road, winds through mountains in Møre og Romsdal. It's a route famous for its curves and viewpoints, one of those roads that seems designed to let the scenery win you over. Would you dare drive it in the fog? Before founding Ferrari, Enzo Ferrari was a driver and sporting director at Alfa Romeo, and then went through stages that led him to create his own company. I'm fascinated by that idea. Someone who first trains inside the beast and then builds their own. You can now train tennis with robots. There's Esther, a human-scale training robot. This is science fiction made real. And it leaves you with a question. If you train with a machine that never gets tired, does your improvement accelerate or does it frustrate you? Strawberries can have more vitamin C than oranges. It's one of those facts that changes a fixed idea. You think orange equals vitamin C, And it turns out that the red fruit quietly is a strong contender. Before he was Mario, the Donkey Kong character was called Jumpman and was a carpenter, and the name Mario came from a Nintendo landlord in the US, Mario Segale. I love it because it shows how a global icon can be born from a coincidence. It's estimated that there are around 3 trillion trees on the planet, and even so, when you think about what is lost each year, the number ceases to be reassuring. It's like knowing you have a lot, but not infinitely many. What would become of the world if that count started to plummet? The Swiss school La Rosée, known as the School of Kings, is a luxury school associated with very wealthy families and prominent lineages. It's not just about education. It's about social networking, connections, tradition, a world apart. When you see dust illuminated by light, you're often seeing tiny pieces of skin floating in the air. It's a rather unpleasant fact, yes, but it also reminds you that the air isn't empty. It's full of life and invisible remains. On the island of Java, Indonesia, Mount Bromo often emits smoke from its crater, creating a mysterious scene as if the landscape were breathing. I saw pictures and felt that mixture of beauty and awe. It's beautiful, but it reminds you that it's alive. The red kangaroo is the largest land mammal in Australia and can reach high speeds up to around 40 miles per hour with incredibly long leaps. It's an animal that seems designed to win races on its own turf. The name Pink Floyd was created from 2 blues musicians, Pink Anderson and Floyd Council. I think it's brilliant. A name that sounds psychedelic and gigantic, born from a simple tribute. In Italy, the Palio di Siena is a horse race held twice a year in the Piazza del Campo. More than a sport, it's about neighborhood identity, rivalry, and tradition. You know when an event becomes almost a local religion? In Hawaii, hula is a traditional dance that combines gestures, songs, and music to tell stories and sustain the culture. It's not just a dance, it's a language. When you understand it that way, every movement becomes a phrase. There's a snake that looks like a banana because of its yellow color with dark spots, and it fools more than one person at first glance in the jungle. The curious thing is that, despite its striking appearance, it's not venomous and is usually harmless to humans. Can you imagine the fright of mistaking it for a fruit? Contact lenses are manufactured by injecting liquid hydrogel into very precise molds and then giving them their final shape with pressure and controlled processes. Thinking that something so small and soft comes from such precise manufacturing is almost hypnotic. And I loved this one when I discovered it. The oldest chewing gum ever found is over 9,000 years old. It was made with tree resin and, according to accounts, may have been sweetened with natural honey. In other words, people millennia ago already had their own version of chewing something for leisure, out of habit, or even for medicinal purposes. Contrary to what its name suggests, the white rhinoceros isn't white. It usually looks gray, and many people experience a moment of surprise when they see it for the first time. And since we're on the subject of rhinoceroses, did you know that its horn isn't bone? It's made of keratin, the same material as our fingernails and hair. Suddenly, that giant animal seems a little more relative, doesn't it? In the ocean, there's a sprinter that looks like it belongs in a video game. The sailfish, often mentioned as the fastest in the sea, capable of reaching speeds of nearly 68 miles per hour in short bursts. And that makes me wonder, if we struggle to run 12 miles per hour, what does the world look like when you move 5 times faster, but underwater? I was also struck by the bit about diets. It's often said that India has one of the highest rates of vegetarianism, but the exact number can vary greatly depending on how it's measured, what's considered vegetarian, surveys, region, etc. In other words, the general idea is true, but the precise percentage isn't always as simple as it seems. Has it ever happened to you that you love a statistic and then discover that it depends on how you look at it? Apple's first logo is a historical gem. It wasn't the minimalist apple, but a more classic illustration with Isaac Newton under a tree. It's as if the brand was saying from the beginning, this is about ideas that suddenly come to you. And speaking of trees, an average tree can produce an enormous number of pencils. A figure of around 170,000 is often cited. It makes me laugh to think about it, a single trunk becoming thousands and thousands of potential stories. The Savannah cat is another curious breed that seems almost made up. It's a hybrid, the result of crossing a serval with a domestic cat, originating in the 1980s. It has that unusual mix of elegant cat and miniature wild cat. Do you see it more as a pet or as an animal that still retains a touch of the jungle in its gaze? Regarding restaurants, here's a fact that keeps changing. McDonald's remains one of the world's giants in terms of the number of locations, with more than 4,3,000 restaurants globally, according to recent reports from the company itself. And the funny thing is that many people automatically assume it's number one, but in some rankings by number of branches, it might appear second. Does it surprise you that the world is so franchise-dependent? Devendra Suthar became very well known for being born with polydactyly, more fingers than usual, and is often referred to as having 28 fingers. It's one of those cases that makes you think about how incredibly variable the human body can be, and how something so unexpected ends up becoming part of your public identity. The most famous verified human longevity record belongs to Jean Calment at 122 years and 164 days. That blows my mind. What does it feel like to watch the world change for over a century? What things become normal when you live that long? Another story I love for its symbolism. The Pacific Ocean was named by Ferdinand Magellan for its calm appearance when he crossed it in 1520, peaceful as a synonym for serene. And that makes you laugh a little, because anyone who has read about the Pacific knows that it can also be brutal. How many things do we name after a good day we had with them? San Marino is often presented as one of the oldest states still in existence, with its founding traditionally dated to 301 AD. And it's precisely this blend of history, myth, and continuity that makes it fascinating. It's like a piece of the past that refused to disappear. Otters have a strategic tenderness. Sometimes they hold hands while they sleep so they don't separate from the group. And yes, this makes you want to say, they can't be that cute. Can you imagine waking up and confirming that your team is still there, literally clinging to you? With Russia, there's a number worth keeping in mind. Its total area is about 660,1670 square miles, making it the largest country in the world by area. It's so large that percentages are sometimes exaggerated. For example, it's not 10% of the Earth's land surface, but it does occupy an enormous portion compared to any other country. Ants also play in the league of the minuscule. They are said to be able to carry minute volumes of liquid in microliters in their abdomens. This kind of fact reminds you that the small world has its own physics and its own scales. Nikolai Valuev was a boxing monster in terms of size. He is known as one of the tallest and heaviest heavyweights to compete at the highest level, weighing in at about 331 pounds. Seeing him next to other boxers seems almost unfair, as if they had mixed weight classes by mistake. And yes, the famous "you can't fold a piece of paper more than 7 times" is usually true for a normal sheet of paper folded by hand. But more than an absolute law, it's a practical limit. It's not that the universe forbids the 8th fold, it's that the thickness, size, and strength of your hands say this far and no further. The Hollywood sign also has its own secret. It originally read Hollywoodland when it was erected in 1923, and the land was removed in 1949. So it wasn't a recent change, but a decision made many decades ago. Isn't it amazing how an advertising sign ends up becoming a global cultural symbol? There's a very curious idea about the perception of time in animals. Those with fast metabolisms, like flies or hummingbirds, process stimuli more quickly, and their world may feel faster, while animals with slower metabolisms might experience something more paused. It's not that they have an internal clock like ours, but it does change how much detail they capture per second. Cats have more bones than we do, around 230 compared to our 206. That explains quite well that feline talent for contorting themselves as if they were made of liquid. In Japan, there's a service called renting company. People who offer themselves as friends to go out, eat, or go to the movies. It's a mix of modernity, urban loneliness, and a bizarre business that leaves you wondering, is it sad, practical, or both? The Atacama Desert is famous for being hyper-arid, with areas where extremely long periods without rain have been recorded. It's a landscape that seems otherworldly, and for that very reason, it's often used as a Martian analogy. Goats' eyes are another oddity. Their rectangular pupils allow them to have an extremely wide field of vision, ideal for detecting predators. It's as if they came with a built-in panoramic screen. The moon is moving away from the Earth at about 1.5 inches per year, measured with reflectors installed by the Apollo missions. But beware of the dramatic part. It doesn't mean it's going to disappear from the sky anytime soon. These changes are extremely slow, and long before something like that happens, the sun will have radically altered its own trajectory. Beavers are veritable machines. They can fell trees with teeth that function like chisels at a rate that seems impossible for an animal. And when you see what they build, the inevitable question arises. Who taught them architecture, or how do they know it without knowing it? The largest confirmed impact crater on Earth, Vredefort in South Africa, is gigantic. It's estimated to be hundreds of miles across if you consider its entire structure. It's the kind of fact that makes you feel small. The Earth has enormous scars, only time has managed to disguise them. In Japan, there's a scene that seems straight out of a peaceful film, Toro Nagashi, when lit paper lanterns are set afloat on rivers or the sea. The idea is deeply symbolic. The lights help guide the spirits of the ancestors, especially in the context of Obon, and that's why it's usually celebrated in summer. Can you imagine the silence of the water and thousands of tiny points of light slowly drifting away like memories you don't want to let go of? And if you're drawn to the beauty of a single day, let me introduce you to Hanami, the Japanese tradition of gathering in spring to admire the cherry blossoms, sakura. Many people have picnics, chat, take photos, but the heart of the ritual is something else entirely. Looking at something precious that fades quickly and accepting that fact without feeling sad. Don't you find that when something is brief, it feels more intense? Another celebration I love for its simplicity and power is Tanabata, the Star Festival. People write wishes on strips of paper called tanzaku and hang them on bamboo branches. I discovered some time ago that it's not just about making wishes, it's also about seeing them there, hanging, as if the air could arrange them. What would you write if you knew the sky would read it? In Iceland, the phrase 10% believe in elves is widely circulated. But when you look at surveys and well-known articles, something even more curious emerges. It's not always a matter of believe yes or no, but rather leaving the possibility open. For example, there are polls where a significant portion of Icelanders say that it could be or that they don't rule it out, and others where the percentage of believe hovers around a third. And there the question is inevitable. Is it a literal belief or a cultural way of respecting the mysterious? In Mongolia, the traditional nomadic house is the jur. Many outside the country call it a yurt, a circular, portable dwelling designed to be assembled, disassembled, and withstand the harsh climate. They describe it as a home that moves with you, not the other way around. Can you imagine having a house that you can fold and carry, as if your neighborhood were the landscape? Snails also come with a fact that sounds unbelievable. They have thousands of microscopic teeth on a structure called a radula, a kind of ribbon they use to scrape food. It's often said that they have up to 14000, but what is certain is that we're talking about thousands. This makes me laugh because it completely changes the image. On the outside, they're slow and cute, and on the inside, they have a feeding tool that seems like something out of science fiction. Speaking of extreme luxury, the Rolls-Royce La Rose Noire Droptail is frequently mentioned as one of the most expensive new cars in the world, with a rumored or estimated price above $30 million. And here's where the fun question arises. When something costs that much, are you buying a car or a work of art on wheels? And I'll close with an iconic figure. Naomi Campbell made history with Vogue covers, but the important detail is which Vogue and in what year. In August 1988, she became the first black model on the cover of French Vogue, a landmark event that is widely discussed. It's one of those dates that marks a turning point, because a cover isn't just a photo, it's who enters the heart of culture. In Norway, the name Birkebeiner immediately brings to mind a very famous cross-country ski race, the Birkebeiner, an annual marathon that has existed since 1932 and commemorates a historical Norwegian event, a journey to protect a child heir in 1206. Can you imagine competing knowing that you are, in a way, recreating a story of survival? And that's all for now. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting facts.